The terra dust wind howled against the side of the outpost bunker like a starving animal clawing to get in. Rainvale stood at the narrow viewing slit of reinforced glass, sipping synth-calf gone cold in his hand, eyes fixed on the black and blue horizon. Above him, the planet's second moon, larger, bruised, and luminous, was rising over the fractured ridge, casting shadows that didn't match the rocks. He'd learned to trust those shadows. This planet was a graveyard for terraforming teams. Once meant to become a colony for Earth's overflow, it had been marked red after the AI incident. Now only salvage crews and banished engineers came here. Rain wasn't exiled, not officially, but when you volunteered for the Edge outposts, it meant you had no one left asking you to stay. He hadn't seen a living soul in 129 days, which is why the flicker of movement near his thermal vault hit him like a blade to the spine. He didn't drop the mug, just set it down slow. Quietly reached for the kinetic rifle hanging above the breaker panel, slid the barrel through the slit, adjusting the scope without breath. There, between the slag piles, a figure. Not local wildlife, not a scavenger droid, no animal moved like that. Too controlled, too tall. Its outline shimmered faintly in the moonlight, armor sleek and skin glinting. It crouched low, then dashed forward, fast and silent, reaching the sealed bay door of the storage vault. Rain's finger hovered over the trigger, then froze. The figure turned slightly. A face, barely visible, feminine, not human. Long limbs, skin with glowing seams like fault lines on a live wire. Her back bore a slung weapon, some kind of curved blade with what looked like energy anchors. She moved with the fluid purpose of a soldier who had never once been taught to run. She didn't try to break the door. She input a sequence into the panel. He cursed under his breath. How the hell did she have a code? His code? Rain backed from the slit, heart hammering. He moved through the narrow halls of his bunker with careful, practiced efficiency. Breath controlled, feet light, rifle high. At the intersection to the vault corridor, he paused and listened. Nothing. He moved closer. Just before the vault, he stopped. There was a sound, metal shifting, then something unexpected. Breathing. Slow, controlled, but strained as if someone fighting to stay calm. The sound of pain barely hidden. He stepped out, rifle raised, and came face to face with the being that wasn't supposed to exist on this planet. She stood in the center of the thermal vault, crouched beside a fusion canister, her hand midway through calibrating the PAX converter. Her eyes met his the instant he entered, glowing cobalt with golden ringed irises. Not scared, not surprised, just waiting. Her armor was worn, scorched in places. One arm was slick with drying purple-black blood. Her breathing hitched just once before she rose to her full height, at least half a head taller than him, and turned fully toward him. Rain didn't speak, didn't move. Her voice was low, edged with exhaustion, but crisp in its structure. Your emergency code is still factory default. Poor protocol, human. Rain blinked. She turned away, picked up the fusion pack. I need power. I'm taking this, stop. His voice didn't come out as strong as he wanted, but it was enough. She did stop, but she didn't drop the canister. If you were going to shoot me, you'd have done it already. I'm still considering it. She glanced back, her expression unreadable. You won't. Try me. She tilted her head, studying him with eerie stillness. You're alone. You're undernourished and no backup for 200 clicks in any direction. You sleep in shifts. You barely drink water during rotation hours. You're not a killer. I've shot things before. Her lips moved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Things. Not people. She took a step forward. Rain stepped back. Safety off. Don't. Then shoot. The silence stretched between them like taut wire. She didn't raise a weapon. She didn't beg. She didn't even tense. She just stood there, holding the fusion pack like it weighed nothing, her side leaking blood, her breathing more labored now. Rain's jaw clenched. You're bleeding. Observation. Accurate. You're running. Also accurate. He lowered the gun a fraction. Who's chasing you? A pause, then, the ones who built me. That stopped him cold. What are you? The glow in her tattoos flickered as she turned again. Tired. Hunted. and not in the mood to kill today, human. I'm taking this pack. You can call in the coalition. But by the time they respond, I'll be gone. Probably dead. Either way, not your problem. And she walked past him. Rain didn't move. Didn't aim. Didn't stop her. Not when her shoulder brushed his. Not when the heat of her passing felt like a living engine rolling under his skin. Not even when she disappeared into the dusty night, vanishing behind the shadow of the second moon. The fusion door closed behind her, and he stood in the silence, rifle lowered, pulse roaring in his ears like a storm. 3 nights later, she returned. He didn't see her approach. Didn't hear her land. He just woke in the middle of the night to the sound of something soft landing outside his bunker. He reached for the rifle again, heart already awake before the rest of him was. When he opened the door, she was sitting on the edge of his solar array. Same armor, fresh blood on her thigh, a long gash across her neck sealed with hasty biofoam. She looked up at him like they'd spoken yesterday. "You didn't call them," she said. "No." She tilted her head. "Why?" Rain stepped outside. The night was cold and dry, stars sharp above the shattered ridges. "Because you didn't hurt me. And you looked like you needed the help more than I did. You're not smart, human. I'm aware." She looked at him again with that unreadable stillness, then said, "I'm Viraya." The name felt like a code word detonated in the dark. Rain didn't ask for more. He just sat down across from her, and somewhere under the dying stars the world shifted. Just slightly, but enough. Enough to change everything. Morning crept over the cratered horizon in shades of rust and gold, the air still carrying the bite of frozen dust. Rain stood by the outpost's east antenna, trying not to glance at the silent figure perched on the rock formation beyond the fence. Viraya hadn't spoken since she arrived before dawn, wordlessly dropping a bundle of energy crystals beside his door before climbing the ridge to watch the horizon. She hadn't slept either. Her armor looked patched with rough plasma welds, her movements heavy, deliberate, like a creature learning to slow down after years of running. He checked the readings on his panel. "You brought back charged cores." "How?" "Don't ask." "I'm asking anyway." She turned her head slightly, light rippling across the seam lines on her neck. "I raided a crashed scout unit 6 kilometers east. They had what I needed. You'll need them too if you plan to survive the next storm." Rain frowned. "Storm?" She didn't look away from the ridge. "You really don't see the signs, do you?" He followed her gaze. The sky above the northern plateau shimmered faintly. Not weather, but an approaching distortion. Magnetic field collapse. The kind that could rip open the atmosphere for hours. Rain exhaled sharply. That would cook the comms array in the filtration unit. Viraya's gaze flicked to him, unreadable, awesome, then stopped standing there and prepare. He moved fast, boots crunching through the dust. She joined him without being asked, her movements efficient, wordless. They sealed the ventilation, reinforced the power conduit with extra shielding, and dragged spare plates across the eastern wall. By the time the storm hit, the outpost was trembling like a metal heart under siege. The wind howled with static charge. Every flash of ion light lit her face in sharp blue angles. Rain was crouched at the core regulator when a voltage surge cracked through the panel, searing across his forearm. He cursed, jerking back. Before he could recover, she was there, faster than reflex, pressing her hand against his wound. The pain faded almost instantly. Her skin was warm, not metallic as he expected, and her eyes flared briefly. "Nanite injection," she said flatly. "You'll heal in minutes." Rain stared at her hand on his skin. "You can do that?" "I was designed to repair others in my squad." She hesitated, then withdrew her hand. "Not supposed to use it on humans." "Then why did you?" The question hung there between them, drowned by the roar of the storm. Her expression didn't change, but something in her voice softened. "Because you didn't leave me to die." The silence stretched. She turned away, fingers clenching briefly around her wrist as if punishing herself for the admission. Hours passed. When the storm finally began to die, the air inside the bunker was heavy with heat and silence. They sat opposite each other on the floor near the emergency lamp, him with his patched-up arm, her with the faint hum of her armor still cooling. Rain broke the silence first. Who's hunting you? Varaya didn't look up. My own people. Wait, because I refused an order. What kind? Her head tilted slightly, eyes narrowing. Do you humans always pry this much? Only when someone bleeds in our supply vault and steals our power cells. That earned him a flicker, not quite a smile, more an echo of one. The Janari Collective believes our bloodlines must be preserved through controlled bonding. I was paired with a command variant. I refused. They called it a malfunction bonding, he repeated. Like marriage? Her gaze lifted to him, sharp and assessing. No, like programming. We are not permitted to choose. Rain leaned back against the wall. And you ran. I killed the one who tried to force the merge, she said simply. Then I ran. He absorbed that in silence. Her voice carried no guilt, only finality. Yet underneath it, something human, raw and trembling, lingered like an echo she didn't know how to erase. You could have hidden anywhere, he said quietly. Why come here? Because no one comes here. Because humans don't last long this far from their kind. Her gaze softened. You're an anomaly, Rainvale. He smirked faintly. You looked up my name? Your file was in the outpost logs. Volunteer engineer, refused reassignment after the AI purge, lost communication with Fleet Command. You've been alone for a while, he interrupted. Yeah. She studied him for a long moment. Why? He looked away, voice low. Because after the war, I stopped knowing what to do when people looked at me. Machines didn't judge. Silence didn't ask for forgiveness. Something shifted in her eyes, in a flicker of recognition. Varaya stood and crossed to the control window. Outside, the storm was breaking apart into glowing strands of light, curling like dying auroras. When I escaped, she said softly, I swore I would never need another being again. It was easier to be a weapon than a woman. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He joined her by the viewport, watching the storm peel away. You're not a weapon anymore. You don't know that. I know you could have killed me, but you didn't. She turned close enough now that he could see the faint line of circuitry along her collarbone, the subtle pulse of bioluminescence beneath the skin. And you could have called your fleet. I didn't. Why? Maybe I don't see you the way they do. She didn't answer, but her jaw tightened as though she didn't believe him. Or worse, wanted to. The lights flickered. The temperature stabilized. The storm had passed. Rain busied himself checking systems to hide the way his pulse had changed. He was trained to handle circuits and generators. Not eye contact and heartbeats. From behind him came her voice, low and measured. You shouldn't look at me that way. He turned. What way? Like I'm something you could fix. He opened his mouth, but no words came. She held his gaze a moment longer, then turned back to the window. The collective will trace the storm's residual energy. They'll find me soon. Then we'll move. Her head snapped toward him. Become, he met her stare. You saved my arm. You brought power cells. If they're hunting you, they'll find me too. I'm not sitting here waiting to die. For the first time since he met her, she looked uncertain. You would run for someone you just met? He gave a small, crooked grin. We're both outcasts. Might as well make it a team sport. She studied him for a long moment, then exhaled softly through her nose, a sound that might have been a reluctant laugh. Humans are illogical. That's what makes us interesting. Night returned faster on this planet than Earth. By the time they had packed emergency gear and sealed the bunker systems, the sky had turned a deep indigo. Rain adjusted the grav pack straps over his shoulders. Where to? Varaya scanned the horizon. There's a dead zone 30 clicks west, no sensors. The ruins of an old mining settlement. We can hide there until I find transport. He nodded, then let's go. They moved across the darkened dunes in silence, the air crackling faintly from residual magnetic charge. Varaya led the way, her movements cat-like, precise. Rain followed close behind, trying not to think about how surreal it all was. Him, a half-broken engineer, following a runaway alien soldier through the wasteland of a forgotten world. Hours later, when they reached the first ridge overlooking the ruins, Varaya stopped suddenly and raised her hand. Rain froze. A soft hum vibrated through the ground. On, not wind, engines. Far above, faint red lights moved across the sky like hunting eyes. Coalition scouts. Varaya dropped into a crouch, her breathing sharp. They're tracking biosigns. Rain's heart hammered. Yours? Yours too. We share atmospheric carbon now. Their sensors can't distinguish us. So what do we do? She glanced at him, her voice low. We pray your illogical courage has a plan. He did, but it wasn't good. Mining tunnels, he whispered. They run deep. Shielded. If we can reach them before those drones drop, they'll lose us in the metal. She hesitated only a moment before grabbing his arm and sprinting toward the valley. Her grip was iron strong, but her stride smooth, balanced. Behind them, the sky ignited with the red sweep of search beams. They reached the tunnel mouth just as the first drones descended. The light washed over the rocks like a blood tide. Inside, he shouted. They dove into the darkness as the ground behind them exploded in a flash of molten glass. Inside, the world went silent again. Only their breathing and the distant echo of collapsing stone. Rain leaned against the wall, catching his breath. You good? Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, wild and alive. You risked your life for a stranger. He gave a half smile. You're not a stranger anymore. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them thrummed with quiet electricity. Not danger, not fear, but something heavier, unspoken. Then Varaya said, barely audible, You shouldn't get attached, human. Too late, he said. She didn't answer, but in the dark, she didn't move away either. Outside, the drones circled endlessly. But inside that ruined tunnel, something new had begun. Small, defiant, and alive. Something neither of them had been built to feel. The tunnel stretched for miles beneath the old mining district. Veins of metal and stone that hummed faintly with the ghosts of long-dead machinery. Rain's flashlight beam carved slow arcs across collapsed shafts and rusted support columns, painting Varaya's armor in glimmers of blue and shadow. The hum of her neural core filled the silence between their footsteps. They had been walking for hours, deeper into the belly of the planet, chasing the last scraps of safety this world had to offer. Above them, the drones had swept the surface until dawn, their searchlights cutting across the dunes like the gaze of angry queens. Down here, the air was still, but not empty. Varaya stopped suddenly, lifting her hand. Rain froze behind her. A soft metallic chime echoed from the distance. 3 short pulses, then silence. That's not natural, Rain whispered. No, she murmured. It's a recall beacon. They're close. Your people? She turned her head just enough for him to see the faint flicker of gold behind her irises. They're not my people anymore. Her words sounded like a wound reopening. They pushed forward quickly, weaving through half-collapsed shafts until they found an old maintenance chamber, large enough to shelter in, walls lined with abandoned drilling rigs. Varaya crouched, setting a sensor node on the ground. A blue hologram flickered to life, showing a topographical scan of the tunnels above them. 3 life signs moved steadily closer. Organize. Searching. They're coming fast, she said, coalition hunters. Probably sent to retrieve or terminate Rain's pulse kicked. Terminate you? And you? You made contact with a renegade Janari. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. They won't make exceptions. He tried to mask the tremor in his voice. Then we don't let them find us. Her gaze flicked toward him. You have a plan for that, human? Maybe, he muttered, dropping his pack. You said this place was built for ore extraction. That means ventilation shafts, old exhaust pipes, magnetic lines. He opened the portable schematic from his wrist pad, comparing the layout. If I can reroute power from one of the remaining fuel cells, I can overload the conduit wall, create a cave-in, seal us in. Buy time, Varaya stared at him. That will trap you. Us, he corrected. Humans and their hero complexes. She shook her head, though her tone wasn't mocking. It was softer. You really don't value your life much, do you? He looked up from the wrist pad. I do now. Her eyes flickered briefly, that same strange look she gave him before, half confusion, half recognition. Then she said quietly, Do it. They worked side by side in silence. Rain stripped wires from rusted conduits, while Varaya placed signal traps along the upper shafts. He could feel her near him, even when she wasn't. Her movements precise, lethal, disciplined. Every now and then, he'd catch her watching him, expression unreadable, as if trying to understand why a man who had nothing left would still stand beside her. When the first tremor hit, it wasn't from their explosives. Varaya stiffened. They're here. The air vibrated with a deep hum, gravitic boots on stone. Voices echoed through the tunnel, metallic and cold. Rain reached for his rifle. How many? 3, maybe 4, she said. 1 commander, 2 drones, 1 field tech. He nodded. Good odds. She gave him a sidelong look. For them. Guess we'll have to fix that. The lights dimmed. Dust fell from the ceiling. Varaya's hand brushed the hilt of her plasma blade, her posture shifting, fluid, dangerous. Stay behind me, she said. No. Rain, not happening. For a moment she looked like she might argue. Then to his surprise, she nodded once. Then stay alive. They positioned themselves near the choke point between 2 broken pillars. The first hunter dropped from the upper shaft, silver armor glowing like liquid steel, helmet visor reflecting their faint lamplight. It moved with inhuman grace, scanning the dark. Rain held his breath. Then Varaya moved. She was faster than he could track. Her blade flashed once, a white arc through the dust, slicing clean through the hunter's armor. The body hit the ground before the sound of the strike did. 2 more appeared instantly, firing plasma bolts down the corridor. Blue fire lit the darkness. Rain ducked, returning fire, his rifle rounds sparking off their shields. Varaya sprinted through the barrage, cutting left and right in fluid precision. Now, she shouted. Rain slammed the detonator. The tunnel roared like a living beast, rock shattered. A wall of dust and flame erupted between them and the advancing hunters. For a moment, everything was light and sound and pressure. Then, silence. When the dust cleared, half the passage was gone, sealed in rubble and heat. But one hunter had survived, pinned beneath twisted metal, sparks arcing from its chest plate. Its helmet cracked, revealing part of its face beneath. Pale skin, eyes black as oil. Varaya approached slowly. The wounded hunter turned its head toward her. Its voice came through broken static. Designation, V07. You are recalled to base. Cease resistance. I'm not yours anymore, she said quietly. Your DNA belongs to the collective, it rasped. Your emotions are contamination. Your defect will be purged. Something inside her snapped. Rain saw it in the tightening of her shoulders, the tremor in her hands. She stepped forward and drove her blade through the hunter's chest. The light in its eyes went dark. Rain lowered his rifle, heart still pounding. Remind me not to make you angry. She didn't answer. She was staring at the body, her expression unreadable, until he saw her hands shake. He stepped closer, hesitant. Varaya? Her voice was low. He was my squad partner. Rain froze. The one you? The one they sent to mate with me. She looked down at the dead soldier, her eyes cold. They erased everything that made him a person, turned him into this, a machine wearing flesh. Her hands clenched into fists. That's what they all do to me if they capture me again. Rain moved closer, slowly, carefully. He reached out and touched her arm. Her armor was still hot from the fight, faintly humming with energy. I won't let that happen. She turned her head sharply, eyes glowing faintly in the half-dark. You can't stop them, human. Watch me. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to argue, but instead she said, You don't understand what they are. Then explain it. She exhaled slowly, her voice trembling under the weight of something too long buried. We were built as perfect soldiers, fast, obedient, emotionless. But evolution doesn't stop where they command it to. I started feeling things. Curiosity, fear, desire. They called it a malfunction. She looked at him then, eyes sharp and glistening. Humans are flawed by design. Yet somehow your flaws are what make you powerful. You love even when it hurts. You hope even when it's hopeless. That's why they fear you. He met her gaze, voice low. and you're starting to understand us. Maybe, she whispered, and maybe that's the most dangerous thing I've ever done. The ground shook again, far above this time. Rain grabbed her wrist. We need to move. They ran through the tunnels, chased by distant collapses. When they finally emerged near the surface, dawn was bleeding across the horizon. The storm had cleared, leaving a strange calm. They stopped among the ruins of old mining towers, both breathing hard. Varela scanned the horizon. They'll regroup. Send more, then we'll keep moving. She turned to him. You can still leave. Take the ridge path west. The extraction line might pick you up. He laughed under his breath. You still think I'm leaving you? You really don't know humans. Her expression softened for the first time. You should be terrified of me. I am, he admitted, but I'm also drawn to you. That's the problem. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she said softly, You really don't know what you're doing, do you? No idea. Her eyes flickered, and for the first time, her lips curved in something real, a ghost of a smile. Good. Neither do I. They stood there for a moment, the world eerily still around them. A thin wind carried the scent of ozone and dust. Rain could see the faint glow of her tattoos pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Then she said, You asked earlier why I came here. The truth is, I heard a human distress signal from this sector months ago. I thought I could use it as cover to hide, but now I think maybe I wasn't hiding at all. He frowned. Then what were you doing? Looking for something that felt real. Her gaze met his, steady and unguarded, and somehow I found it. He didn't think, just stepped closer, close enough that he could see the tiny flecks of light moving in her eyes, like galaxies. Her breath caught, but she didn't move away. The space between them charged, alive with something neither could name. Then her wrist module beeped. Her head snapped toward it. The glow turned crimson. They've found us. Rain's heart dropped. How many? She didn't answer immediately. Her jaw tightened. Mach 3, not 4. A full squadron. They're mobilizing from orbit. He looked toward the horizon where faint streaks of red light were breaking through the upper clouds. Then this ends here. She turned to him sharply. You'll die if you stay. Maybe. But if they take you, I'll die anyway. Something broke in her gaze. Fear, frustration, something more. You are infuriating. Humans are good at that. She hesitated for half a heartbeat, then stepped forward and gripped his shoulder, fingers pressing hard into his skin. Then if we die fighting. Together, he said. She nodded once. Together. The dawn wind carried the sound of approaching engines. The rising light painted the ruins in gold and crimson. Rain chambered his last charge into the rifle, his pulse steady, his fear forgotten. Beside him, Varela unsheathed her plasma blade. Its edge ignited in a deep violet glow. And for the first time, they didn't look like a human and a fugitive. They looked like a team. The sun hadn't yet cleared the ridge when the Gennari dropships appeared, sleek obsidian arcs descending from the clouds like executioners. 4 of them, each carrying a full squad of precision-engineered hunters. Rain counted at least 20 figures fanning out through the ruin-strewn valley, their armor reflecting the morning light like mirrors of war. He stood at the mouth of the collapsed shaft, his rifle raised but useless against their tech. His breathing was steady now. No more panic, no more second thoughts. Beside him, Varela was stone still. Her plasma blade thrummed quietly in her hand. The wind pulled her dark hair loose from the plating across her neck. Her tattoos pulsed a soft violet, no longer warning colors, but alive with something deeper. The lead commander stepped forward, tall, face half covered in a synth steel mask. His voice came through the embedded speaker in harsh Gennari tones before switching to Terran Basic. Unit 5-07, he said. Your function has been compromised. Return now and you will not be terminated. Rain stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. The commander's head turned slightly, assessing him as one might assess a faulty machine. This human has no authority. She's not under yours either, Rain said, his voice cutting through the air. She's not a unit. She's a person. Varela didn't stop him, didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the soldiers behind the commander, those who looked like her, but not anymore. You are interfering with a military retrieval operation, the commander said. Surrender the defector. She's not a defector, Rayan replied. She made a choice. That's something you wouldn't understand. The commander turned his gaze fully toward Rayan now, stepping closer. You are unarmed. Surrounded. You will not survive this. I didn't survive the last war to crawl away from this one, Rayan said quietly. And if you kill me, you prove everything she ran from. Behind him, Varaya stirred. He speaks for me, she said suddenly. The air stilled. I choose this. I choose him. Gasps echoed from the soldiers. The commander's stance shifted slightly, like her words had registered as a malfunction. He raised his hand. Then you are no longer Gennari. I never was, she said. He gestured once. Weapons powered up across the line. Rain stepped in front of her. You'll have to go through me first. The commander stared at him and something shifted in his voice. You would die for her? Rain didn't hesitate. Every damn time. Silence. Long, heavy. And then, the commander lowered his hand. To Rain's surprise, he didn't order them to fire. Instead, he looked at Varaya for a long moment and spoke something low in Gennari, softer, regretful. Then he turned. The soldiers followed without a word. Rain exhaled only when the last dropship lifted off. He turned to Varaya slowly. Her face was unreadable, but her hand reached out, fingers brushing the back of his neck, lingering there. I've never seen them back down, she said. Not for anyone. They didn't back down for me, Rain said. They did it for you. You scared them. Her voice dropped. Or maybe I finally became something they couldn't control. He smiled, exhausted. Told you were terrifying. She stepped closer. And still, you stood in front of me. I meant what I said. I know, she whispered. That's why I can't walk away. Her lips met his before either of them could speak again. In that moment, the war, the fear, the future, it all fell away. There was only this, two people who should never have found each other, and did. The dust didn't settle for 3 days. Not in the valley, not in the Squanomai, and not in Rain's chest. They remained in the ruins of the old mining settlement, patching up what they could, scavenging broken solar arrays and melted components. Rain worked with his hands blistered and bloodied, while Varaya moved beside him with silent precision, her shadow always overlapping his. There were no more dropships, no more soldiers. The Gennari had vanished without a trace, as if the confrontation never happened. But they had left behind a choice, and Varaya had made hers. Each night they slept on repurposed bedrolls beneath a fractured sky dome, where the stars flickered through ancient cracks like old gods blinking. And each morning she was still there when Race opened his eyes, silent, scarred, real. The first time she reached for his hand in the daylight, she did so without armor. No blades, no threats, just fingers, rough and warm, threading between his. And in that one fragile moment, she looked more dangerous than she ever had in battle, because now she could be hurt. Now she could lose something, or someone. Are you afraid? Rain asked her once quietly, as they lay side by side watching clouds crawl across the high sky. Every second, she answered. Of them returning? No. She looked at him. Of feeling too much. He nodded, throat tight. Same. But neither pulled away. Instead, they began to rebuild. Varaya hollowed out one of the old mining chambers and made it a home. She stripped the walls, reinforced them with scavenged plates, painted markings across the beams from her mother's tribe, memories she'd buried under years of war training. She planted herbs in scorched soil and wove fabric from old survival tarp, dyeing it with crushed roots. She taught Rain how to move silently through tunnels, how to recognize poisonous spores, how to defend against a surprise ambush using only sound. He taught her how to repair filtration systems, how to build a water purifier from scratch, how to laugh when things didn't work the first time. Their hands touched often, at first by accident, then not at all by accident. It wasn't perfect. Rain still flinched in his sleep when thunder rolled overhead. Varaya still woke up stiff from battle reflex, hand reaching for a blade that wasn't there. But in the space between those bruises, something new grew, something they didn't have a word for yet. One evening, as orange-glory twilight flooded the valley, Rain returned from a long walk with a bent solar mirror under one arm. He found Varaya kneeling by a broken comms dish, her sleeves rolled to the elbow, grease on her cheek. She didn't look up when she spoke. "You always come back." He stopped beside her. "You sound surprised." "Where I come from," she said, voice soft, "no one does." He crouched, reached up and wiped a streak of black from her face with his thumb. "Well," he said, "this isn't where you came from anymore." She stared at him, something in her gaze trembling like a string pulled too tight. "Then where do I come from?" He set down the mirror, took her hands, pressed them to his chest. "From here," he whispered. "From this." The next morning the sky turned gold, and they didn't run. Weeks turned to months, the valley changed with them, flowers grew where ash once lay. Their bunker became a home, not just functional but lived in. They carved markings into the wall by the door. Dates, storms, victories, shared nights. Rain rigged a beacon that blocked tracking signals. Varaya constructed a perimeter defense system from parts scavenged during their long treks to the northern ridges. They didn't talk much about the past anymore, only sometimes. Like the day Varaya found the old photograph Rain kept buried in his pack. Two figures, one older, grinning, a hand on a younger shoulder. "Your father?" she asked, holding the photo with careful fingers. He nodded. "He taught me how to fix things. But I never learned how to protect people. Not when it counted. You did now," she said. She kissed him that night with a gentleness she hadn't known she possessed. One night, months later, they sat beneath the broken sky dome, their hands dusted with dried paint from their latest repairs. Rain's fingers ached. Varaya's shoulder bore a healing scar from a collapsed beam. He looked up at the stars. "Do you regret it?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I regret not doing it sooner." He turned to her. "I spent years thinking freedom was about running. Escaping, but it's not," she said. "It's about choosing. You gave me that." Rain reached out, brushing her jaw with his knuckles. "And you gave me back my life." She leaned into his hand. "We were never supposed to meet." "No," he whispered, "but here we are." A breeze stirred her hair. She tilted her head. "I thought I was born in a lab to fight and die," she said. "But maybe I was born so someone could find me and see something worth saving. You were never just a soldier, Varaya." She looked at him, and this time her smile reached all the way into her eyes. "And you were never just a lonely man hiding in the dirt." They held each other then, in the quiet, where there were no more orders and no more wars. Only the echo of their breath, only the warmth of shared silence, only two hands gripping tighter as the night fell. They stayed, not because they had to, but because they chose to. They rebuilt the station, turned it into a beacon for others like them, those without a tribe, without a place, without a name. Sometimes stragglers came, refugees, survivors, broken soldiers, scattered engineers, and the couple at the heart of it all always welcomed them. She with fierce, quiet eyes, he with soot on his fingers and light in his voice. And when people asked, "What is this place?" Rain would answer, "This is where the broken build something new." And Varaya would add, "This is where we stop surviving and start living." Because in the end, it was never about bloodlines or programming or war or obedience. It was about choosing each other. And when all the stars had burned away, when the last signal faded and the last war ended, somewhere deep in that quiet system at the edge of nowhere, a once human man and a once weapon woman held hands by a sun-charged garden and knew they had won, not the war, but the right to love.